one, I think a paradox that is really wrong is assumption that's really wrong is that paradoxes are in fact fairly rare birds. I think we assume that because organizations ought to be reasonably structured where things line up, that paradoxes shouldn't exist, and if they do, it's a problem. But in fact, paradoxes everywhere. You join a new team, immediately, right, you want to be a member in good standing and you find yourself conforming, but at the same time, you want some autonomy. Well, that's just one of a dozen paradoxes, Smith and Berg, 87, one of a dozen paradoxes that are true of teams, on through all levels of analysis. So paradoxes everywhere. The second assumption that I think badly needs updating is that paradoxes are bad. Because we assume that organizations ought to be these structured things where everything lines up, we believe that if things aren't clear and linear, there must be a problem. And I understand superficially why we make that assumption, because paradoxes are, by definition, about things that are antithetical. You've got mutually exclusive poles that don't quite line up. In fact, they can't line up, and yet there they are. But the assumption that that is bad or wrong is misplaced. First, not only is it normal, but I think paradox very often is a very healthy thing once you think it through. I mean, the reason why you've got a paradox quite often is because both of these duality, the polarities, have to exist. They're mutually exclusive, but both make sense by themselves. So the challenge, of course, is what do you do with them collectively to make bigger sense of the organization? So assuming outright that this is a bad thing to be squashed, I think is wrong. And the third assumption, which follows from the first two that I think needs updating, is a paradox should be and can be resolved. The very nature of paradox, if it's one that's substantive, is that you really cannot ever do away with it. So back to the team one, for example. So the paradox is I'm a member of a team and I want to conform to show I understand group norms, but I want to be my own person and independent. Well, those are two different things, and both have integrity and matter by themselves. So you can't really just cross a line through one of them, because then you've got a team that isn't quite a team. You've got people who are either over-conforming or under-conforming. So I think the thing with paradox is not to think about in terms of something as a problem to be resolved, but as a normal, healthy phenomenon to be thought through. So I think organizations that do the best job of paradox are ones that acknowledge it, they make it explicit, and they acknowledge, here is why these two poles exist, here is why these two poles both matter, and they help their managers and employees think through how, without trying to collapse them, which is a mistake, how we can actually live and engage with both of them. And that road creates holism and it creates wisdom. Hard to pull off, which is even when you're trying to do it, don't count a resolution, but at least I think processing openly these different poles can really lead to much better practice. Those are my three assumptions.